Greetings, welcome to the Tower Dive. I'm your host Dota, and joining me today is Armyoverlord, headcaster for the Bronze Silver Gold competitive series, Xdaawn, Gestapo of Duo Esports, FredFredderson, caster for the Bronze Silver Gold competitive series, as well as a hating, self-loathing top lane main, and last but not least, can play Rakan, who, believe it or not, is a support main, and also plays for Team Nevermore. So, for this week's edition of the Tower Dive, first question. This week we have match of the week, I'm going to call it, Weeaboo versus So, who do we think is going to win? Who's going to be the standout players? We'll go to you first, Army.
Well, giving a look-see over at the first games, going after Weeaboo's last performance, as well as Tists. They definitely seem to have a pretty difficult time with getting that first game to go smoothly and nicely. Seems like these guys are still having a little bit of those jitters. So I'm going to imagine a situation where Game 2 will be the more deciding factor between everything. And that's where I think Jin Daddy and his team of Tis is just going to always seem to find a way to get that Game 2 in and under control. So I feel like they'll force us tie here, 1-for-1.
Okay. Dawn?
Yeah, between those two, I gotta go with probably Weeaboo 100% here. Their Maki's pretty consistent in the mid lane, has been pretty much the whole season, doesn't really come up into too much competition. And I think in one of the previous weeks, they even took a game off Naughty Nips, who honestly I didn't think would get a loss so early, but they took a game off of them, so I don't think DTS is up to that level yet.
Okay. Fred?
I definitely have to say Weeaboo for a 2-0 this week. I saw the match last week, Weeaboo versus Naughty Nips. Weeaboo's got a strategy that not many teams pull off, and it was clean enough to even make Naughty Nips react a step behind and just keep dictating the pace for a large portion of the series that they played against Naughty Nips. And I haven't seen too much out of Tis outside of Jin Daddy, and I'm not expecting him to be able to handle Weeaboo's clean rotational play with split pushing.
Alright. Rakan?
This is actually more of a closer one to me. It looks like both mid laners really perform on specific champions, but outside of that, the whole team is... both teams are relatively mid-tier in terms of their play. One thing that catches my eye is DeFluff doesn't seem like he plays a lot of top lane tanks, but his Shen game had pretty decent stats, whereas it looks like Xenial Shot's got kind of just the Nasus thing going on just in week 2. So I'm going to have to give it a 1-1, and I guarantee that takes the first game. If they ban Nasus, then top lane's pretty much dead by the way.
Alright. Okay, so personally, I'm kind of leaning towards a 1-1. But if I had to give a 2-0, it would definitely be Weeaboo. Now, I know both teams are sitting at 0-2-0, but I think Weeaboo, to me personally, has had a more difficult schedule so far the past 2 weeks, because they played Naughty Nips, which they went 1-1 on, who I think is a top-tier team, and then Burger Squad is a mid-tier team, whereas DTS played against Frosty and Good Gaming, whereas I think Frosty's more of a mid-tier, and then Good Gaming, at this point in time, I'm going to have to lean towards is more of a bottom-tier team. So, I want to say 1-1, but if it was a 2-0, I wouldn't be surprised. And just like you guys said, Jin Daddy, I think, is the player to watch. He has the ability to completely pop off, put everyone in his backpack, and just carry people to the finish. The problem is, if he doesn't pop off, then I feel like his team's kind of lackluster. So, I think I'm going to give it a 1-1, just for me. But let's go on to the second question. So who do we think is going to hand Piping Esports their first loss, or are they just going to remain undefeated the entire season and just be the #1 team going into playoffs? Let's start with you again, Army.
I was just going to say real quick that you could still be the #1 team and take a loss somewhere in between all of this. In their current positioning right now, they could take a loss here and they could still remain in the top position. Maybe tied with another team, probably, but most definitely at this point they will retain #1 even if they lose. But the team to do it is, well, I feel like there's kind of a strong set amount of teams right now that could upset the balance for them and actually put them in a rough spot. I feel like a multitude of teams could do that, I'm afraid. Their games, one, are not as completely clean and concise as some other games that I've witnessed here. There are just times where you just kind of feel a little bit of doubt every single step of the way, and I'm sure some fans agree with that type of mentality. But for piping, I feel like if they are going to be defeated, it's definitely going to be in a match where they will actually have some very close competition. It's still going to be a fight, just like they always have had it, and I feel like that there's just going to be a difficulty continuing what they have.
So you think they might lose a game against a team that's going to give them a good match? That's your prediction?
Absolutely.
Solid. Just completely out of the ballpark. Your wild predictions are why we keep you on the show. Thank you, Army. Xdaawn, please.
Just looking at their schedule coming up, their next game is up against Nevermore. Don't think they're going to drop a game there. Their game ones are really rocky, though, especially last week during against Frosty. It was like a 50-minute just fiesta.
Yes.
Back and forth, and their late game shot calling definitely isn't where it needs to be. Their decision making definitely isn't where it needs to be in that first game, particularly. Second game they closed out 26 minutes was pretty clean. But just what team's going to give them their loss? Probably week 4 against Weeaboo, because if they don't fix those issues that I was talking about, like getting into that mid game and not being able to like close out a game, not being able to use their leads, and just their decision making late was just really suboptimal to say. So if I had to pick a week that they probably go ahead and take a loss, it'll be week 4 against Weeaboo.
Okay. Fred?
So from what I've seen of piping so far, they've run a similar strategy pretty consistently. Zegri goes to sleep in the top lane with some champion that nobody cares about. Pretty much an assassin's playstyle jungler, and Galleon gets Orianna and has a mediocre performance. I'm expecting something to happen pretty soon that shakes this up a bit for their team. They've been pretty predictable from what I've watched. I wouldn't expect them to keep going too much longer. I wouldn't be surprised if they drop a game this week off stream, just you get 0-2'd and just leave us in the dark completely.
Wow. Okay. Rakan?
This is gonna make me sound overconfident, but guarantee a Nevermore 2-0 this.
Oh!
That's not at all a question. I've looked at the stats, I've watched them play, they do not...
Hey,
They are, excuse me. They are, not as communicating, they don't have as much synergy, and their top laner is pretty much the only person that consistently performs, but he's 3 out of 4 games on 1 champion.
Okay.
It's going to be a 2-0 for Nevermore, 100%. Their bot lane can perform if they get ahead, but that's not going to happen.
Okay. Could you just remind the audience, Rakan, what team you play for again?
I play for Nevermore.
Okay, thank you. So, now... Okay, no, I think that's actually pretty good analysis. That doesn't sound very biased to me, honestly. No, I'm being serious. I don't think it sounded that biased. I think it might be a 1-1 this week. Why do you say that? Well, let me tell you. Because so far, right now, it's looking like Piping's going to have to use a couple subs for the match. That's why, personally, for me. Because, I mean, I know you have subs on the roster, and that's the whole point of having subs, in case your main people can't play. But we all know that having a sub is not the same as having your main guy. They may be ranked the same, you know, both are ranked gold 2 or whatever, but it's just not the same as having that guy. And I'm not sure who the shot caller is for Piping, but if one of their shot callers is leaving, and we saw that Fiesta last week against Frosting with their main roster, and now they're going to throw in a sub or two, I think it could easily go 1-1, personally, just because of the subs. Without the subs, I would lean for a 2-0, close 2-0, but a 2-0 nonetheless. And then, finally, let's get to the down and dirty. Who will gift ESG their first win, or are we going to have our very own Cleveland Browns in the Bronze, Silver, Gold competitive series? Let's go backwards this time. We're going to start with Rakan.
BSG. That's Burger Squad, correct?
No, ESG.
ESG, excuse me. Okay, ESG. Let me take a look here. Honestly, from what I've heard of them, the only person that, and even looking just at stats, the only person not performing is their jungler. I highly suggest that their team captain takes a listen to this, looks at his stats, and either has a real long talk with him or benches him and finds somebody that can perform. Because this guy, in the last 2 weeks, has gone negative on scoreline or just barely breaking even. His new game wasn't bad in Game 1 against Burger Squad, but his CS per minute's only 4 as a jungler. His wards are combined into games 33, and he's got the highest KP that he's had so far is a .77 across the whole split so far. That's not that great coming from the jungle's perspective. Now, while my jungler doesn't necessarily always build Tracker's Knife, I think it's one of the best items in the game, especially now that Sightstone has been quote-unquote removed. I think Tracker's Knife has jumped up in priority about tenfold than what it was before, and Vision Control is just as important now as it was the patch before where Sightstone was still an item.
Okay. So, you think ESG might win? All they need is just change the jungler, and then you think they can be like a middle of the pack team?
My turn. So, looking at week 3 for ESG, they're up against All in Lane, and this is a game where I definitely expect a solid 1-1 from these teams. All in Lane has always been pretty shaky throughout the time. Very consistent, but All in Lane usually plays around their 2 carries, and that's what determines how they win, with Kid of Fire having very hit or miss performances. So I definitely think ESG can definitely pick up a win on that, just off Kid of Fire having one of his misses in performance. And even failing that, they don't have the hardest the schedules coming up, because they are against Roar in the next week.
Okay, fair enough. Dawn?
Yeah, I just don't know if they can match the team fight of All in Lane, because if there's one thing that All in Lane's really good at, it's team fighting. Like, their lane's kind of just mediocre for the most part. They just do what they need to do to get their items. But then once they start doing those fights, I don't know if there's anybody that can like just run around with with their head cuts off and like somehow still have like a semblance of a team fight better than All in Lane. They are just all over the place, and it's really hard to keep track of. I don't know if ESG is there yet, so I don't think they're gonna win a game there. But against RAR in week 4, that they do have the potential there. RAR not being the strongest right now, ESG probably is going to take about another week or 2 to get like their team together. But they could pop off against All in Lane. I'm not expecting it, but I definitely think week 4 is where they show us that they're back. They make that mid-season run like they did last year, and then I have hopes for them considering they're returning team from season 1. So,
All right. Army, hit us.
Okay. So one thing I found very interesting about what you said about the Cleveland Browns here, very, very interesting. Personally, I do not think that any team in this league could possibly reach the magnum opus of what the Cleveland Browns had accomplished that year. Personally, EpicX Gaming has the potential to reach such a great feat, but I do not see them whatsoever coming close to that type of circumstance. The truth of all of it is, the main focus of what EpicX Gaming has to do is they have to sit down, they have to figure out what they need to know, when they need to know, what they need to make things happen. They need to understand the environment that they're in, and they've got to adjust and make things work around them. They absolutely have to know what's going on. They cannot sit around. They cannot just say, well, this is just going to happen. Well, we're just going to take this. We're just going to wait for something else to occur. It's all about understanding the here, the understanding of the now, and they've got to reach for it. They got to take it. Absolutely.
So it sounds like to me, you're saying they just need a coach. Not players, not a different players roster. You're saying they should get a coach.
If not that, if you can't even just get a coach, if it's just not a possibility, then just have a wider mindset, collect some ideas, get some perspective here, look at what is going right, what's going wrong, and if you can't make that type of thing happen, then just try something that you believe can work. You are a program that can win and has gotten very far in Season 1. That is not that different. You've got talent, you've got players, don't give up on them, or try something different.
Man, that motivates me, Armin. You should be a motivational speaker for ESG. I like it. You really talked him up. I'm being serious. No sarcasm at all. I am ready for ESG to take this match now. Before, I wrote it down even. I was like, I don't think they're gonna win next week. I don't think ESG's doing so hot. But you know what? Now I'm feeling 2-0. I'm feeling a clean run to the playoff finals.
For Fridge's sake, I hope he can make something like that happen.
Yeah, no. But in all seriousness, let's get back to reality. So, ESG plays all one lane this week. I love ESG. I do. I love Fridge. They're great people, but I'm not gonna lie. I think it feels like Rakan's definitely done his homework on these guys. I haven't done the in-depth homework. I just kind of did, a little bit here and there. I think against all one lane, I definitely want to agree with Don. I think all one lane, they play generally just kind of safe lanes, and then they team fight. That's what they do. That's just what they enjoy. Every team comp is let's group as 5. That's what they do, and it usually works. I mean, they're doing pretty good right now. All one lane is. So, my question is, will ESG beat them? I don't think so. Will it be a complete stomp by AOL? I don't think so either. But I do think it will be a 2-0 for all one lane. Now, next week against RAR, I think ESG can do a 1-1. Give them another week to combine, because as we all know, ESG kind of finalized the roster very late. I think it was like a few days before the season started. They finalized the roster. So I would assume they don't have the best synergy right now. They're still working on that. So another week plus against RAR and Doki's off-meta picks. I think that will help them. The brand jungle, even though it's pretty strong right now, I feel like it's maybe not the best for Doki to pick. So I kind of feel like ESG could take a game off RAR. And I think that's will they break the curse and go back to it. Now, final question for you guys. Right now, who do we think the top 3 teams are? We'll go back to you, Army.
Well, right off the bat, it's kind of difficult, even at this stage of the game, to be 100% this is their best, this is the best, there's no better than these
of course, yeah.
Group of players and people. Because it's usually just like the shiniest part of how people can perform that kind of debates on who actually is the best. Because like Jin Daddy, 26 kills last week, and a total of that, and that is out of his 2 games, did absolutely fantastic. And then there's also the times where it's not a real doctor with his incredible 113 on his ward department. It's always awesome to witness as well. And AOL's his Hero of Termina, just fantastic performances out of everybody. And it's genuinely difficult to say exactly. But since I have to pick somebody, sorry, I'll get to the end. Piping Esports, all one lane, and Naughty Nips definitely can't really place them in the specific slots, but those are the 3 that I'm really feeling pretty confident about right now.
Okay. Xdaawn?
I agree with Army, actually, surprisingly. This is one of those rare times where I'll
What?
actually say that. Yeah,
What?
Yeah, for once, I don't think he's wrong.
Huh.
Yeah, but I will go ahead and place them. Yeah, Piping Esports, although they are first, they're not clean, and they're not consistent. So, for that reason, I'm actually going to give them 3rd out of the top 3.
Ooh.
I'm going to give all one lane 2nd, simply because their team fights are so strong. Like, if you actually go back and watch their games, they're absolutely insane. Like, I don't think there is going to be many teams that are even going to hit that level of team fight, and they're doing it week 2. So, I can only imagine that that's an upwards trend for them. Maybe they'll learn a couple different playstyles in between now and the end of the season, help them out a little bit in the draft. But just having them be at that point already at week 2 is insane. First place, though, slight bias, but I've got to give it to Naughty Nips simply because I don't think they're anywhere near where their potential is, and they can already close games out sub 25, sub 26 minutes. So when they're on point and they're playing their game, they close out games faster and better than anybody. The one mistake that they had against Weeaboo, they just didn't know how to handle the Nasus top. They adjusted to it in the second game, and they completely stomped them. So for that reason, being adaptable in series, being able to close out games better than anybody else is right now, and again, they're only in week 2. That's why I got to give Naughty Nips number 1, because that can only, I hope at least, that's only going to be an upward trend, and it continue to improve as the season goes on.
Okay. Fred?
Yeah, for me, I think my top team is definitely Naughty Nips as well. They're really solid on their performance. If they ever get a lead, you can pretty much say the game's over 3 to 4 minutes in, because I don't really see them ever drop that. I think so far what I've seen from their mistakes is that first game against Weeaboo, they didn't have Barbie's Naughty there to whip them all into shape when they were struggling. And it seems to be really what they need. And as much as I do love, you don't make my top 3. I do love those guys, but they're not up here. Piping would probably be my number 2. While they very hit or miss, I do really like how they play around the top lane, just leaving Zebri alone up there. He just gets to chill, he just gets to do his thing. And then their jungler just runs around and destroys the rest of the map. It's exactly what you want as a top laner. And I think that if they can maybe stabilize themselves, they won't really drop from their first place rank. It might jump a little bit while they're stabilizing, but that's really what it comes down to, is if they can keep this going. My third team probably be Weeaboo, just for the fact that they're one of the few teams I see not just picking a big area of effect team fight composition and running at the other team and hoping that their team fight comes out on top.
Alright. Rakan, please.
So, personally, I don't have a top 3, mostly because it's 2 weeks into the season have been played. There's a lot of fluctuations in the standings. We had a altercation over the weekend that got resolved. We went 2-0, but we split a 1-1 to resolve the issue cleanly, and we took a loss in a game to fix that issue. That being said, the standings are a little mucked up because of that. However, in a hypothetical top 3 world, Nevermore is top 3 material, but I can't place us. Same with Piping, and I'm going to have to give some love to my guys from All One Lane. They played pretty well when we played them. The reason that I put us in there, and that's not me being a player bias, that's just from what I see on the inside, from the outside looking in, and from the inside speaking out, is these guys and myself, we come to play and we come to win. And we all communicate as one. Our team fight is gone from abysmal at best to we're communicating in a new way that none of us had before. We're all warding surprisingly well. And Army, I'm going to point out that you got your stats wrong. The highest vision score so far was 115 by yours truly. And
Okay.
I have the screenshot to prove it too, my dude.
I
But I
believe
don't. And Wards win games. And the synergy between myself and Requiem is par to none on anybody else in this tournament. We communicate more often in a laning phase than our jungler does with the rest of the team. We talk about our engages, we talk about how we want to do it, we talk about where we want to put our pink wards and our green wards. We try to make our back timings as much as possible. I tell him if I'm going for a roam to play safe. He tells me if he's going back that I just sit under tower. We communicate well, and that's where I think that we are top 3 material, is not just from bot lane alone, but everybody communicates in the whole game.
Alright. So, me. So, yeah, I agree it is pretty early for the standings, but my top 2, I feel like it's a race for third for everyone else. My top 2, Naughty Nips, Piping. Piping looked pretty solid. I mean, they did have the Clown Fiesta, but then, like we said, Game 2 against Frosty was very clean. The only problem is Piping is 2-0, which, again, is why I kind of want to put them top 2. But then at the same time, you look at their schedule, who they played. They played Good Gaming, who I think is a bottom-tier team. They 2-0'd. And then they played Frosty, who I think is a mid-tier team. 2-0 again. But, like we said, 1 Clown Fiesta, 1 clean game. So, are they a top-tier team? Or have they just got lucky and played, you know, the lower half of the standing teams in the first 2 weeks? I'm not sure, but they are the top team right now in standing, so I'm gonna have to give them top 3. I'd have to give probably Naughty Nips number 1. I think they're doing great. GVG wins top lane. Owen wins mid lane. The jungler, Mailman, right? I believe, but he's gone. They have a new jungler, so it's hard to say about him. And then bot lane usually goes even or better. So I think they have a solid plan as long as the jungler can do what future Mailman was doing, which is camp solo lanes, get solo lanes ahead, bot lane don't feed. I think they'll remain a top tier team. And plus, Naughty Nips played Weeaboo, who I think is a strong team. Went 1-1, which maybe they should have won 2-0, but 1-1 nonetheless. And then they played ESG, which was pretty one-sided. So I think right now it's a race for third. Who should be third? I don't know. All one lane's looking alright. Weeaboo, I think, is an alright team. I think Nevermore is definitely in the race. And then Burger Squad, who really no one talks about, even though they're looking alright too. But again, that kind of falls into strength of schedule because they played ESG. Which, I'm sorry to be up on ESG a lot. I do apologize. But, I mean, they are the bottom tier team right now, so it seems like if you play them in the first couple weeks, it's a 2-0. Hopefully that will change, and I do have faith in them that they're going to step it up and start to win a couple and not be a freebie for anyone. But it's a fact. You know, people look at it in all the other sports. Strength of schedule, strength of schedule, strength of schedule. You might be number one team the first few weeks because you have an easy schedule, but then when you get to the last 2-3 weeks and you're playing, you know, the top half of the teams, all of a sudden you're a middle of the pack team because you lost 3 in a row. It's like, ooh, were they a top team and they just went into a slump? Were they a middle of the pack team and just got lucky in the first few weeks? So that's my 2 cents. I definitely have to give it to Naughty Nips and Piping, and then I think the race for third is just where it's at right now. I'm excited for the next few weeks to see who goes up and down. And, you know, especially as we start hitting the next couple weeks, getting to the middle of the season, people will stop changing their rosters and start, you know, keeping those 5-man instead of changing people in and out. And I think that's when we're really going to see teams kind of solidify their spot, and that's when we can start getting into more upsets. But that's all we have for today. That'll be it for this week's Tower Dive. Make sure you guys check out our games on Twitch TV, twitch.tv/Duo Esports. We have matches Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Check those out. Give us a like. Check us out on YouTube. And that's all.